is but another example of political violence in a deeply polarized America. But some are saying that this latest killing may be different. It may change America and really not for the better. Is that true? Let's explore it. We'll take your calls too. 03030 80 55 55. We're joined by John Sardino from Democrats Abroad and Errol Moorcock, who is spokesperson for Republicans overseas. And Errol, our commiserations, our condolences to you particularly, because I know you were a close friend.
Yeah, thank you very much. Charlie and I not only were friends, but I'm getting married in December in Palm Beach to a woman that I met because of Charlie and his organization. And one thing I want to point out is how young Charlie is. He was only 31 when he was murdered. So him and I worked together when we were friends when he was almost comparatively a boy. To now he's a man with children and a wife taken from him. So that's the trajectory of a life that so much lived in such a short amount of time.
It is awful. It's not just tragic, it's evil when a life of any age, but particularly a young life, as you're describing, Errol, is erased so brutally. And that's the reaction, I think, that most people have, particularly since many of us, and I don't recommend it, many of us have seen the videos because there were so many young people with phones who captured this terrible moment of brutality. But others already, Errol, want to frame this terrible assassination, this murder, in deeply political terms. You've heard the president already pointing the finger at the radical left. Others, we don't know who did this yet. We don't know what motivation they may have had. We don't know if mental illness was involved in this situation. We don't know anything really beyond the fact that someone has acted so brutally and murderously in taking the life of Charlie Kirk. Is it too soon, do you think, to be politicizing what has happened?
It's hard to say because you're talking about a murder that is almost guaranteed to have been politically motivated, which is the definition of terrorism. Now, about Charlie, I mean, fear of death dissolves when your life is secured by your Savior, and Charlie Kirk was a firm Christian, firm in his belief and firm that he had eternal life through Jesus Christ. And so while his death on this plane is certain, Charlie is not gone. And I think the president and all of the people around him and people like myself, you know, obviously we're the ones in mourning, but we're also the ones who are going to keep the flame that Charlie Kirk lit alive. And Charlie wouldn't want us to back down from this. And obviously, when the bullets are all going in one direction, sure, we haven't found out the exact motives behind this, but obviously it's something that's become a problem. And when the political violence is going to, look, during the election, I had to tell my hometown SWAT team to put me on a list in case they tried to SWAT me at my house because I was getting threatening messages for coming on programs like this. Yeah. People are threatening to kill me, and I'm nobody. Charlie Kirk was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's lost here, how cheap life is to people. Yeah. Like when a gunshot follows an opinion, the issue isn't the opinion, but the fragility of the people who are firing the guns.
But John Sardino, welcome, John. We hear it there also in Errol's response, framing this such that the bullets are all going in one direction.
Yeah, I think that was an unfortunate phrase. But first I want to say how deeply concerning this is, and my condolences to the family of Charlie Kirk, and my condolences to Earl. I didn't realize that he had been so close to him personally, and so I think that this is a tragedy. Before I knew very much about this, I thought what a shame, what a real tragedy it is that somebody 31 years old with obviously a thriving mission that he had. That I may have disagreed with a lot of the things that he said and in a lot of his arguments, but I certainly wouldn't ever want something like this to happen to that. And I feel terrible for his family, for Charlie Kirk's family, and I wish them well. But I do want to address I think what Earl said about bullets flying in one direction was maybe I'm misunderstanding his statement, but I think the bullets are flying in all directions, and that's the great tragedy in America at the moment. There are politicians, political leaders on the left and the right that are getting shot down. I mean, it's just not long ago that the Speaker of the state legislature in Minnesota, the Democratic leader in Minnesota, was gunned down at her own house by somebody who turned up and had a target list, and she was at the top of the list. This guy was later captured, and fortunately before he did wound someone else after that, but he was captured before he could work his way further down the list. So I do think that it's a tragedy, the situation that we've come to in America.
The framing is important, isn't it? We have had politicians on the left and on the right and in the middle targeted, abused, and attacked, Errol. And I think it's important that we get the framing right when we're looking at political violence in the United States. The bullets are not all going in one direction, are they?
I think it's important to let's bring some context in.
Sure.
President Trump, multiple assassination attempts. Steve Scalise, congressman, shot during a congressional baseball game. I mean, these are pretty big deals. I mean, these are pretty serious things. And if Trump hadn't turned his head 1 millimeter to the side, his head would have exploded on live television. So I'm a reasonable person. I'm aware that there is political violence and hate on all sides of every spectrum in the world. When it comes to the current political violence, I mean, in the 2016 campaign, our offices were firebombed in North Carolina. Now, I'm sorry, but nobody on our side has taken out a gun and taken a shot at Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, or Hillary Clinton. You know,
but Melissa Hortman was murdered on the 14th of June this year.
I'm not disparaging
a Democratic
whatsoever.
Politician.
I'm saying that trying to kill the sitting U.S. president is a pretty big step up from any political violence in this country, and then now killing people who aren't soldiers, who aren't politicians, who are simply being shot down during debate, regardless of what we can draw out here. The majority of the country feels the way I feel, that the violence towards the top people is coming towards us, towards our president, and towards. Sure. And keep in mind, we're the majority of the party. So maybe if you break down the stats, sure, but that's not how it feels, and that's not how the country is going to respond to this, which is more important than anything.
If I may, Earl, I've with great respect, you really have to be a bit more honest about this. That there is, whether it's Nancy Pelosi's husband who was attacked in his home with a hammer, or Gabby Giffords, a Democratic congresswoman, we could go. This is a silly tit for tat, trying to say which side has suffered more. I think it's just it's absurd to get into this kind of an argument. I think the tragedies have been profoundly felt on both sides.
Which Democrat spokesman has been shot like Charlie Kirk, sir?
Earl, again, I think that trying to get into a statistical tit for tat is just it's.
I'm not. I'm asking you directly. Which notable person in your movement has been executed recently on television, sir?
So let me ask you. Let me try to take.
I'm asking you, sir, as a spokesman. I'm coming here. No, you're not going to turn the question around. If the answer is nobody, then you can say nobody, but you don't answer my question with a question.
Earl, if I may, I think part of the issue that we have in America right now is the heat of the rhetoric and the polarization. So
nobody. You've got nobody, sir. So the answer is no one.
I'd like to reach out and offer. If you would like to get together, just me and you personally, sometime at your convenience next week at a pub here in London of your choosing, I'd be happy
talk you through
to have a beer.
Another place, and another time. Sure, I understand.
Yeah.
And look, I've got a list. I'm not going to go through it, but I've got a list of political violence, assassinations, attempted assassinations in the United States going back a long way. And there are Democrats all over this list. There are Republicans. There are others as well. I understand the trauma of this moment, and it is traumatizing. And I think everybody can agree with Donald Trump when he says this is a dark moment for America, whatever your political views are. But the danger here, Errol, could be that when a tragedy and an appalling atrocity like this happens, is that it could be used and weaponized to further increase the polarization, the very polarization that can lead to political violence. That's the danger, isn't it?
Absolutely, and if you and your listeners go back and you listen to what Charlie spoke about this, he spoke specifically about his great fear that if discourse and dialogue, especially between young people, the future of our country, were not going to be back open, that you were going to have physical violence, and that could even turn into greater social strife.
For sure.
And so, that the response, of course, there's going to be anger, and of course, nobody can control the way that lone wolves behave, but Christian people, and especially people who listen to what Charlie Kirk espoused, would know that the last thing Charlie would ever want is anybody to have any retribution physically. Now,
Of course.
you and I both know that that isn't how the world works, and that somebody out there is going to take this and escalate it, because that's the situation we're in, and that's why we're talking about it today.
That's why the framing and the rhetoric becomes really important as a way of de-escalating some of those fears in American society. But American politics, as we know, it's a cliche now to even say it, is so polarized that no matter what happens, if it rains on a Tuesday morning, that becomes a politically motivated event and a politically weaponized event in the polarization of America. It's an incredibly odd situation that we're living through in American politics. But look, coming at it from this side of the Atlantic, John, I mean, a lot of us look at these things differently because we live in a different kind of culture. This happened in Utah, which is an open carry state. I listened to an interview this morning on the Radio 4 Today program with someone who was just yards away from Charlie Kirk when he was murdered. And that young man who attends Utah Valley University explained on British Radio Today that because it's an open carry state, all the students who were there, thousands of people, have the freedom and the right in law to be armed at the university, to take their gun to class with them. And when you have a powder keg political environment, and you have a state that's open carry and a college where you have the right to carry a gun to class with you, you're kind of asking for trouble is the answer that you get from a lot of people on this side of the Atlantic. Can't you do something about that?
I'm sure that there are common sense ways that both sides can agree on to reduce the number of guns and the availability of guns. It's done all over the world in countries that have shooting as a sport. They have regulated hunting and all kinds of things. I'm sure that it's possible. It just requires some dialogue between the two sides to get together and address it in a sensible way. I think as far as an open carry or a concealed carry, obviously in this case, this was an unusual, an awful tragedy that happened with somebody who obviously was. It appears that from what I've read and seen that this was a lone shooter with a rifle, firing from
a roof
of yards away. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that there was no further violence or any accidents that happened. I think that part of the goal of any sort of gun program is to teach safety and sensible use of firearms, and I would certainly support that.
Yeah, and Daryl, we have to put on record, because a lot of people have put it on record, that Charlie Kirk was also a big defender of the Second Amendment right to bear arms in the United States. And he famously, some would say infamously, said on a stage, I'm not going to play the clip, but he said on a stage when addressing the question of school shootings and mass shootings, of which there have been way too many in the United States, that those events, those sort of mass shooting events, may be a price that needs to be paid in the United States in order to have your Second Amendment right to bear arms, which seems, again, like a very odd thing to say from the perspective of this side of the Atlantic, I hasten to add.
Well, it's only an odd thing if you look at it at face value. But if you believe in the Second Amendment and you believe in what it was created for, it was created, of course, as the abrogation of tyranny. Now let's play a game for a second. The UK and the people in the UK, from my experience, are not huge fans of Donald Trump. They believe that the U.S. government and the people running it are fascists or neo-fascists or whatever.
Oh, we've got a lot of Trump supporters in my audience listening to you right now. Don't you worry about that.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, and hello to all of you out there. But oftentimes,
We've got some Northern Irish politicians who carry flags at Westminster with Donald Trump's name
well, you
and
love to see it.
face
I
on
didn't
them.
know we had
Yeah.
such love. But also, then I'll make a
Some
general
DUP
statement.
politicians, I should say.
I'll make a general statement to the world.
Yeah.
For all of the behavior that the U.S. government has shown itself capable of doing, whether that be what they've done in Iraq and Afghanistan under Bush and Cheney and Obama and Biden, whatever they did in across the world, don't you think it would be really scary if the only people who could control them were themselves, if they didn't have any fear of their own people? And that's what Charlie Kirk was talking about, how the Second Amendment, despite the collateral damage that he himself is now a victim of, is the last bastion standing between our country and eventually tyranny. Because if only the government has the weapons, if they have the weapons, they're not afraid of the people. And in America, you can look at the Taliban. They had no weapons. They won that war. You can look at the Vietnam. They won that war.
Yeah. So if I may, I'm genuine in my invitation to Earl. If your producer would send him my phone number, and the next time he's in London, or if he wants to,
we'll put you in touch. We'll happily put you in touch. Of course,
that would be great.
I very much appreciate that.
I think we've got to start some dialogue.
That would be useful. Let's take a couple of calls. We're talking to Earl Moorcock and John Sardino. A couple of quick calls. Charlie is in Ards, first of all. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, William. I'm just thinking there after Charlie Kirk's murder, and that's what it was. It was a murder. Charlie Kirk spoke on the love of his faith, love of his Lord. He spoke on loving his family, loving his country, and loving his freedom, things that he encouraged the American people to cherish. Now, who would shoot somebody that speaks about love? What type of an ideology, if it was political, shoots people about speaking about freedom and loving their family?
Yeah. Well, of course, he said a lot of other things as well that were very political and very controversial in the world of politics. But that's not a justification for violence either. People have to be able to say what they want to say and express their political views, even if others find them offensive, without the fear or the threat of violence. But thank you very much, Charlie. Tony's there too in West Belfast. Hi, Tony.
Hello, William. William, look, the point I would like to make in terms of the situation in America, particularly with Charlie Kirk's murder, okay, no one can deny that was probably a murder. Well, who was came from?
Yeah, it's clearly a murder. Clearly a murder. Yeah.
But if I'm going to point the finger at anybody, I'm going to point the finger at Donald Trump, because he has solely been responsible, as far as I'm concerned, for the deterioration in terms of relationships within America.
Solely. Donald Trump invented political polarization in America. Are you serious?
Why would you ask me if I'm serious?
It's been there a very long time.
It has been increased. The point I'm making has been increased and exacerbated by Trump and the rhetoric that he's come out with.
No, I'm saying, are you serious? Because we're having a conversation about the danger of framing what has happened in this atrocity in a way that further engulfs the situation. And you've come on to say, I blame only one person. Donald Trump. He's responsible for everything.
William, that is my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion.
Of course you are. Of course you're entitled.
And I can give you, and you can point to, and you've done it already. And in fact, one of the people on the panel there has mentioned the issue, one of the points about Nancy Pelosi's husband, where Trump actually made fun, and also his sons did the same thing, made fun of the
fact that Charlie Kirk, he posted pictures of underwear with a hammer on them. Yes.
So the point I'm making is the lies that Trump has told constantly, continuously throughout his reign as president, both terms, that has basically reduced and led to a situation where the likes of Charlie Kirk and others feel okay and basically can go on more extreme than Trump in instances. He has laid down a marker, and people have reacted to the marker that he's laid down, and reacted in such a way which has led to more and more extreme views being expressed, particularly on the right.
All right.
Because they have a person in power who will back up nearly everything they say, no matter how ludicrous, no matter how far-fetched, no matter how extreme it is.
Tony, thank you very much. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but John, I'm not asking you to address that particular point, but when I mentioned Melissa Hortman, I saw a number of people yesterday saying when she was murdered, assassinated, there was crickets, silence from the American right online, senior politicians. Donald Trump didn't go to the funeral, didn't acknowledge it online either. Surely protocol is the wrong word for murder, right? It's a very bureaucratic term, but surely human decency demands that everybody, no matter what your political view is, you stand up in the face of any political violence, you condemn it, you call it out, and you express your sympathy with those who have lost a loved one and try to build some solidarity to stop it.
Yes, I agree. I think that is the role of being a leader, particularly an elected official in America, should be to stand up to violence, to condemn it, to try to bring the country together, and not to use it for political purposes. I don't want to say anything further about Donald Trump. I think his words speak for themselves, but I do think that leaders on both sides need to say need to condemn this. As the leader of the Democratic Party has issued a statement saying how horrible it is and that it is condemned, that there's no role for violence in political discourse.
And when you've got a powder keg situation, words are matches. You got to be careful what you say. Everybody, you've got to be careful what you say. Errol, John, thank you very much. That's Errol Moorcock from Republicans Overseas and John Sardino from Democrats Abroad. That's it from us.